and about like whether humanity deserved to exist and why she created them. So so all of this stuff kind of really is just my way of like brain dumping out all of my anxiety about how I can't circle this one square. Like, I just can't do it. I don't understand how he can be all three people. And I've heard literally hundreds of people stop me in the streets or stop me at my table and try and explain this to me.
The way I tried to explain it in the short story that I just showed Gord was that it's beyond explanation. It's something we can't wrap our mind around. And this is what God says in my short story. He's just like, you don't get it. You don't know time. Time isn't based upon whatever you came up with on your little planet, and I can't explain it to you in any way that will make your puny brain understand it. So you just got to deal with it.
Yeah, so that's why I really like Lovecraft's work and responded to it. I don't really find him that compelling a horror author. He's fine. He's fine. He's good. He's got his moments. But I really love this mythology because his mythology works on this orange-blue morality line, which is basically like a morality line that you literally can't understand as a human. And you just like they have their own stuff going on. They got their own morality going on there, and like you don't have to understand it, and you can't understand it, except that Catholicism is all about understanding it. Like they say they have an answer. Like they say there's an answer. Like Greek, Roman, Norse, Egyptian, most Eastern religions, they never claim to have an answer. They don't claim to have the answer. They just are there. They're just like, hey, the gods. We know there are gods. They kind of suck, or they got their own stuff going on. But like it's specific to Western religions, and specifically the big Christianity for the main one is the one I studied throughout my life.
If Catholicism made any sense, the Vatican wouldn't exist.
They claim to have an answer, right? But like if they just didn't claim to have an answer, like I don't think that like even Judaism claims to have an answer. They're just trying to get through this whole thing with like as best as they can. Granted, I'm not Jewish. I know I've studied enough of it, but like I'm probably butchering it. But I do know about Christianity, and I do know that like priests claim to have an answer, and if they claim to have an answer, it needs to be compelling. And I've never been compelled by the answer. I'm not saying I'm agnostic. Like I don't know what is out there. I believe that like there's something out there, but I just can't circle this one square in this one religion that like is the religion that I have grown up with. So it has been incumbent upon me for 30 years to write about this one singular topic in as many interesting ways as I possibly could to try and figure out a way to circle this square. And the way that I have come up with is like, well, like he's just lying. Just like Vane, and he's lying, and like it's just like, or he didn't lie, and like the Catholic Church or these other people have just like made it true, and like he's not all powerful and he can't change it, or like something is wrong. And so that is what the kind of God's verse is generally about.
So your God is kind of like Putin.
Thrillers, so.
Yeah.
So like I'll be honest, like I totally understand. Like my books I think make even more sense in the current climate that we live in, because like you're looking at people and you're like, but you're lying. You're just lying. And yes, half of these people believe it, but like you're blatantly lying. Like there should be a tracker underneath you to show that you're lying. Like it's a lie. It's a flat out lie.
That's the tagline to this show: is "Stop lying." Because I really think with all the problems we're facing, these sort of 21st century problems we've come up with, be it climate change or overpopulation or even the coronavirus, whatever we're dealing with, we've got very intelligent people on both sides dealing with it. If they both just stopped lying and worked together to solve a problem, we'd be light years ahead of where we are now. But that doesn't seem to be the goal. The goal is just, can I convince the majority of people that my lies are less untrue than your lies? Like, everybody knows everybody's lying. It's not even a secret anymore. It's
this is the weird thing.
It's just who's better at telling the lie,
right? Or who can produce like a Greta Thunberg to tell the lie for them? Oh, she's a cute girl. She can't be lying.
Well, this is the problem with. Well, this is the thing with tribalism is like most of my work as a nonfiction author is about helping people build audiences and connect with each other. But as good as it can be to like have a tribe and connect with the tribe and like have your little people who watch the show and my people who read my books, and that's great. It also creates a lot of problems because we're all now like relying on falling back to these much smaller tribes instead of remembering that we're like all one real tribe of like humanity, and like it's really just like these borders that we're getting and the money that we're using and like stock markets going up and down are like figments of our imagination. Like the stock market dropped 30% in a month and like literally nothing changed. Like nothing changed except some people got really panicked. But like the actual like day-to-day life of people, besides losing their jobs, like they lost their jobs, but like it's only because a magical number went down. And me and Karen, my wife, were looking at it and like, oh, the stock market went up because of magic. Like it's just magic that happened.
It is. It's kind of like it's an imaginary thing. The economy in general is it's just sort of imaginary. They've made it up, and the money they talk about isn't real. When you look at the American debt, that's not real. They're not ever paying that. That's in the trillions
there was
of dollars.
Something like we're $21 trillion. Well, it's like the world is $21 trillion in debt overall, and it's like who are we all in debt to? We're $21 trillion in debt. To
China.
like, no, nobody. Like, because China's included in that. Like, it's just it makes no sense. So, I try to in my.
That's okay because I heard Trump's just going to borrow it from his dad
to make some sense about it. Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah. Again. So yeah, I try to in my own writing try and make some sense about it. Look, I don't expect many people to agree with me, but my dad was in minor seminary and he's about the most religious person I ever met, and like he liked my books, so I figure I couldn't be all bad, or they couldn't be all bad because like he didn't disown me for like writing about all of this stuff, because like I try to do it not in a sacrilegious way. I try to do it in like an earnest way. Like I am earnestly trying to like figure all of this stuff out. And I think that I do have a lot of people who are religious who read my work. And I think at least what I've gathered from them is that while they don't agree with it, they appreciate that like it's not making fun of their religion. It's a person who is earnestly trying to make sense of the world, and the way that I've made sense of it is not the way that they make sense of it, because the best answer that I've gotten from them is just like some things come down to faith, and I would just rather believe it than not. And like I learned a long time ago, so I had a friend who I knew in high school, and I was in a big anti-religion kick for a while. And his daughter was dying of cancer, and I made some post about it, about like how anyone who does religion turns to religion is dumb or something. This was many years ago, and he commented. He said, "My daughter is dying, and the only thing that brings me comfort is that there's some other purpose. And like, why would you want to take that away from me?" And it was in that moment that I really like had a come to Jesus moment where I was like, he's right. Like he's not doing anything wrong. Like he's fine. Like he's trying to live a good life. He's trying to do the right thing. He's not hurting himself or anybody else. So like, yeah. So now my philosophy is like anything you can do to get through the day that doesn't hurt yourself or others is fine. It's fine. Like, do it. Like,
in the last few years, I've become really intolerant of my atheist friends. I've realized they're far more preachy than any religious person I've ever hung out with. When someone comes up and says Merry Christmas at Christmas time, and then, well, actually, I'm atheist. Now, let me spend 20 minutes explaining to you why that matters. It's like, just shut up. Get on with your life. It's really, life's too short to worry about.
Let's face it, Christ doesn't have anything to do with Christmas anymore anyway, so what difference does it make? It's all about buying gifts.
It's true, but I find, I'm starting to realize something I didn't know is that a lot of religious people have a great sense of humor, and they don't have a problem making fun of themselves, which is fantastic.
I went to Salt Lake City last year for a show,
wow.
And Salt Lake City is the home of the Mormon people. Like it's like where their headquarters is. My books are like, I don't think they're anti-religion, but they're definitely not pro-religion. So I went there, and I was very nervous. Because my friends had gone there and done well, but like they don't have books where like God's a vain drunk, and like that's not the point of the literal whole book. There was not a whole book about like God questioning whether he made a mistake creating humanity, and it's told from his point of view.
Oh, he's got to think that. At some point, he's got to be like, what the hell did I do? These guys are retarded. Why did I
So I was very
them?
nervous, and I found the people in Salt Lake City to be very tolerant and like very funny and very willing to have an open discussion about religion and like our place in it. And they would often buy my books, despite the fact that they would say, I would be like, but I don't understand why you're buying this book. It's like, well, it's a different opinion. And, I'm okay with different opinions. Probably not my opinion, but I want to be open. I'm open to reading other stuff. And I thought that was it was much cooler and more tolerant than I thought, especially because Mormons are known to be quite conservative as a unit.
Yeah.
So I expected that to be a lot different than what I found. What's been nice about these books is they've actually opened up a lot of interesting conversations and discussions with people, and it's been nice. I didn't know what to expect, and granted, they're not everyone's cup of tea, and it's certainly like not the biggest niche to write into, but I've been very pleased with the response for people that like mythology or like thinking about religion or just like really awesome fantasy books. That's the novel series.
That's my number one goal this year, as Gord
fun.
knows, and he's on board too. I think we need to open up that dialogue, and I think we need people of faith and non-believers to just realize they're not that different, and we can talk, and we can sort of work square circles together and work to solve a problem. I would really like to see those sort of borders come down and there be a lot more interaction. I'd also like to see us all go very Christian and start killing people again. I think it would be great if we just started wiping out pedophiles. That's what Christians used to do. They used to go to a place, and if you disagreed with them, they wiped you out, and then there was no problem. I would love to see them return to that. Get rid of some of the Epsteins of the world.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I'd like that to happen before my meteor hits.
Yeah. It's coming next month, maybe.
Well, one thing.
Well, that's just a flyby. The one that's going to hit us is going to hit us in 2027.
Is that when it is now? Do you track?
Yeah, it's 2027. It's going to hit.
Do you track that kind of stuff?
I don't. There's been way too many ones that have not happened. Like there's a new end of the world every year. It feels like, or every other year. So like.
Oh, definitely.
Like I'm gonna stop getting my hopes. Like,
See, this one, only reason I'm excited about this because this is not an end of the world. It's a relatively small rock, but it is going to hit. It's going to hit in southern China, between southern China and Japan. It's going to wipe out a